Clara Whitmore dropped to her knees in the snow, pressing her bare hands against the stranger's chest. He wasn't breathing right. His skin burned like fire under the December cold, and clutched against him was a child, a little girl with hollow eyes who hadn't made a single sound. "Mister, can you hear me?" Clara shouted over the howling wind. "Mister?" The girl stared at her, silent, terrified, holding on to him like he was the last thing left in the world. And maybe he was. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fence post had snapped clean in half. Clara Whitmore stood over it, her breath rising in white clouds, her fingers already numb inside her gloves. December had come early this year, mean and bitter, and the wind cut through her coat like it had a personal grudge. She'd been out here for 2 hours. 2 hours of hauling wood-hammering nails and cursing under her breath at a ranch that seemed determined to fall apart around her. 3 years. 3 years since Daniel died, and folks in town still whispered that she'd sell any day now. That a woman alone couldn't hold 100 acres together. That she'd come crawling back to Judge Whitmore hat in hand, begging him to take the land off her shoulders. Clara drove another nail into the post. She'd die first. The wind shifted, carrying something with it. Something that didn't belong. Clara straightened, squinting toward the mountain road. Nothing but white. Snow and fog, and there, a shape, moving slow, too slow. She grabbed her rifle from where it leaned against the fence and started walking. Her boots crunched through the frozen crust, each step deliberate, careful. Out here you didn't run toward strangers, you approached with caution and a loaded weapon. The shape became clearer. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, staggering like a drunk on Sunday morning. He was carrying something. Someone. Clara's grip tightened on the rifle. "That's far enough," she called out. "State your business." The man stopped, swayed. His head came up, and even from 20 feet away, Clara could see his face was wrong. Flushed red eyes, glassy lips, cracked and bleeding. "Please." His voice came out broken, barely more than a rasp. "Please, she's cold. She hasn't eaten in 2 days." Clara's eyes dropped to the bundle in his arms. A child. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a blanket so thin it might as well have been paper. The girl's face was pale as milk, her eyes open but empty, staring at nothing. "Who are you?" Clara demanded. "Samuel Brennan." He took another step, and his knees buckled. He went down hard, twisting at the last second to keep the child from hitting the ground. I was a... He couldn't finish. His whole body shook with fever. Clara didn't move. Her father had taught her better than that. Trust no one who shows up unannounced. Trust no one who begs. But the child. The child hadn't made a sound. Not a whimper, not a cry. She just lay there in the man's arms still, as death watching Clara with eyes that had seen too much. "Is she yours?" Clara asked. "My niece." Samuel's teeth chattered. "Her mama. My sister, she died. Scarlet fever. 3 months ago. I'm all she's got." Clara felt something crack inside her chest. Something she'd kept frozen solid for 3 years. "Can you walk?" He tried to stand. Failed. Tried again. I can't." He looked up at her, and Clara saw it then. Not just fever. Desperation. The kind that comes when a man has nothing left to give, but still has someone depending on him. "Just take her. Please, get her warm. I'll stay out here. I just need her to be safe." Clara lowered the rifle. "Don't be stupid," she said. "You'll be dead by morning." She walked toward him, each step feeling like a decision she couldn't take back. When she reached him, she crouched down and looked at the girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl didn't answer, didn't blink, just stared. "She doesn't talk," Samuel whispered. "Not since her mama died. Doctor said it's shock. Said she might never..." His voice broke. Clara reached out slowly, the way you'd approach a wounded animal. The girl flinched but didn't pull away. "I'm Clara," she said softly. "I'm going to help you. Both of you. Can you walk with me?" The girl looked at Samuel. He nodded weakly. "Go with her, Lily. Go with the nice lady." Lily. The name settled into Clara's mind like it belonged there. Clara lifted the girl into her arms. She weighed almost nothing. Skin and bones and silence. "Can you stand?" Clara asked Samuel. "I'll crawl if I have to." "Then crawl." He did. Hands and knees through the snow, following her toward the house like a man dragging himself out of his own grave. Clara didn't look back. She couldn't. If she looked back, she might stop. And if she stopped, she might think. And if she thought, she'd remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. A stranger, a child, her ranch, her reputation. She kept walking. The house was warm. Clara had banked the fire before she left, and the embers still glowed red in the hearth. She set Lily down on the settle near the fireplace and wrapped her in every blanket she could find. Samuel collapsed just inside the door. "Don't you dare die on my floor," Clara snapped. "I just scrubbed it." He laughed, or tried to. It came out as a wet, rattling cough that shook his whole body. Clara knelt beside him and pressed her hand to his forehead. Hot. Too hot. "When did the fever start?" 3 days ago. Maybe 4. He couldn't seem to focus on her face. "I tried to push through. Had to keep moving. They were..." He stopped. "They were what?" His jaw tightened. "Nothing." Clara studied him. Even sick and shaking, there was something in his face that didn't match the picture. He didn't look like a drifter. His hands were clean, nails trimmed. His coat was worn, but well made. And there was something about the way he'd spoken, educated. "Careful. You're not a cowhand," she said. "No. What are you?" He closed his eyes. "Does it matter?" "It matters if you're bringing trouble to my door." Silence. Then quietly, "I was a doctor. Once." Clara sat back on her heels. It's a long story. "I'm not going anywhere." He opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked for the first time. "Why are you helping us?" "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Clara didn't answer right away. She looked at Lily, who sat motionless on the settle, watching them with those 2 old eyes. "Because I know what it's like," she said finally, "to have nowhere left to go." She stood up. "I'm going to heat water. You need to get out of those wet clothes before the fever takes you for good. There's a spare room down the hall. Can you make it?" "I think so." "Don't think. Do." She turned toward the kitchen, and behind her she heard him struggling to his feet. She didn't help. Some things a man had to do himself, or he'd never believe he could. 3 hours later, Samuel Brennan lay in Clara's spare bed, shivering under a pile of quilts. The fever had peaked, leaving him drenched in sweat but breathing easier. Clara had forced willow bark tea down his throat and packed his chest with hot cloths. It wasn't much, but it was something. Lily hadn't moved from the settle. She sat there still wrapped in blankets, watching the doorway to Samuel's room like she expected him to disappear. Clara sat down beside her. "He's going to be okay," she said. "I know he looks bad right now, but he's strong. I can tell." Lily didn't respond. Clara tried again. "Are you hungry? I have bread. Some dried apples. Soup from yesterday." Nothing. "Okay." Clara kept her voice gentle. "You don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you." For a long moment, nothing changed. Then slowly, Lily's hand crept out from under the blanket. Her small fingers found Clara's and held on. Clara's throat tightened. "Yeah," she whispered. "Me too." The night passed slow and hard. Clara dozed in the chair beside Samuel's bed, waking every hour to check his breathing. Change his clothes, force more tea into him. Somewhere around 3 in the morning the fever broke. He stopped shaking. His breathing deepened into real sleep. Clara slumped back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. She was exhausted. Her back ached. Her hands were raw from the cold, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. But he was alive. A sound from the doorway made her turn. Lily stood there, blanket trailing behind her like a cape, watching Samuel's chest rise and fall. "He's sleeping," Clara said softly. "He's going to be okay." Lily walked to the bed. She reached out and touched Samuel's hand, just a brush of her fingers against his, then looked at Clara. For the first time, something moved behind those empty eyes. Something like hope. Clara held out her hand. "Come on, let's get you something to eat." Dawn came gray and cold. Clara stood at the kitchen window watching the snow pile up against the fence she'd been trying to fix. There'd be no going out today. The storm had settled in for good, wrapping the ranch in white silence. Behind her, Lily sat at the table eating bread with careful mechanical bites. She'd eaten 3 pieces already, plus a bowl of soup. Clara didn't comment, didn't push, just kept the food coming. "You like horses?" Lily looked up. "I've got 3 in the stable. One of them just had a foal last spring. Pretty little thing, chestnut-colored white star on her forehead. I've been calling her Star, but that's probably not very original." Clara smiled a little. "Maybe you can help me think of a better name. When the storm lets up, I can show you." Lily's eyes flickered. The first real spark Clara had seen. "I know what it's like," Clara said quietly. "To lose someone. To feel like you'll never be okay again." She pulled out a chair and sat down across from Lily. 3 years ago I lost my husband. His name was Daniel. He was a good man. Not perfect, but good. He died in a riding accident. His horse spooked, threw him into the rocks. He was gone before I could get to him." Lily watched her chewing slowly. "For a long time after I didn't want to talk either. Didn't want to do anything. Just wanted to disappear." Clara's voice stayed steady. "But you know what I learned. The people we love, they don't really leave us. Not all the way. They stay here." She touched her chest. "In our hearts. And as long as we remember them, they're never really gone." Lily's hand stopped halfway to her mouth. Her lips trembled. "Your mama loved you," Clara said. "I can see it in the way your uncle carried you through that storm. She loved you enough to make sure he'd take care of you. And he loves you too. That's why he's here. That's why he almost died trying to keep you safe." A single tear rolled down Lily's cheek. Clara reached across the table and gently wiped it away. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said. "Not here, not with me." Lily's whole body shuddered. Then she was out of her chair, crashing into Clara's arms, sobbing silently against her shoulder. No sound, just shaking, desperate, broken grief that had been locked up for 3 months. Clara held her tight. "That's it," she murmured. "Let it out. I've got you. I've got you." Samuel woke up around noon. Clara heard him stirring and went to check. He was sitting up in bed looking around the room like he wasn't sure how he'd gotten there. "Good," she said from the doorway. "You're not dead." He turned toward her voice. "Where's Lily?" "Sleeping, on the settle by the fire. She's fine." Clara walked in and handed him a cup of water. "Drink. You need fluids." He took the cup but didn't drink. "How long was I out?" "About 12 hours. Your fever broke around 3 this morning." 12? He tried to stand and immediately sat back down. We have to go. We've already put you out too much." "Go where?" Clara crossed her arms. "In case you hadn't noticed, there's a blizzard outside. You can barely stand, and that little girl is exhausted. You're not going anywhere." "You don't understand. There are people." "I don't care." He stared at her. I don't care who's looking for you or what you did or didn't do, Clara said. Right now you're a sick man with a child who needs you. You're staying until you're well enough to travel. End of discussion. Why? His voice cracked. Why would you do this? You don't know me. For all you know, I could be a murderer. Clara laughed. It surprised them both. Mr. Brennan, she said. I've met murderers. They don't carry 6-year-olds through blizzards. They don't collapse on a stranger's doorstep begging someone to save a child they could have abandoned miles back. She uncrossed her arms. Whatever you're running from, I don't believe it's your fault. But even if it was, that little girl doesn't deserve to pay for it. So drink your water, eat something when you can, and rest. We'll figure out the rest later. She turned to leave. Mrs. Whitmore. Clara Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore. His voice was rough with something that might have been gratitude. Thank you. I don't know how to. You can thank me by not dying, she said. Now rest. She closed the door behind her. By evening, Samuel was strong enough to walk to the kitchen. He moved slowly, one hand on the wall, but he made it. Clara had soup ready, the last of her winter stores, but she didn't mention that. Lily woke when she heard his footsteps. She was off the settle and across the room before Clara could blink, crashing into Samuel's legs with enough force to nearly knock him over. He caught himself on the doorframe, laughing weakly. Easy, little one. I'm not going anywhere. He scooped her up and she wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. No sound, but Clara could see her whole body shaking with relief. She was worried about you, Clara said. I know. He kissed the top of Lily's head. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to scare you. They sat at the table together, the three of them eating soup in the amber glow of the oil lamp. Outside the wind howled, but in here it was warm, safe. I owe you an explanation, Samuel said after a while. You don't owe me anything. I want to tell you, you deserve to know what you've gotten yourself into. Clara set down her spoon. All right. Samuel was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Lily had fallen asleep against his chest, her small breaths even and calm. I was an army surgeon, he began, during the war. After it ended, I set up a practice in Missouri. Small town called Jefferson Crossing. Did well enough. Had a reputation for being good in a crisis. He paused. Maybe too good. Clara waited. There was a man named Richard Holloway, banker, owned half the county. His wife got sick, something in her lungs. He brought her to me. I did everything I could, but... Samuel's jaw tightened. She died. Nothing I could have done would have saved her, but Holloway didn't see it that way. He blamed you. He needed someone to blame. His brother was the sheriff. Within a week they were saying I'd poisoned her, that I'd been having an affair with her and killed her when she tried to end it. His voice was flat, empty. None of it was true. But truth doesn't matter when a rich man wants you destroyed. Clara's hands curled into fists under the table. There was a warrant. I knew I'd never get a fair trial, so I ran. He looked down at Lily. My sister was all I had left. When she got sick, I went to her. But by the time I got there... He couldn't finish. You took Lily. I promised Sarah I'd keep her safe. That was the last thing I said to her. His voice broke. I can't break that promise. I can't. Clara stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the white emptiness. How long ago did you leave Missouri? 2 months. And they're still looking. Holloway's got money. He'll look forever. She turned back to face him. Then we'll have to be ready. Samuel blinked. You think I'm going to throw you out after hearing that? You think I'm going to send a 6-year-old girl out into a blizzard because some rich man in Missouri told lies? She walked back to the table and sat down hard. I've spent 3 years fighting people who want to take what's mine. I'm not afraid of a banker. Clara, Mrs. Whitmore. Clara, she corrected. And I mean it. You stay as long as you need to. You help me with the ranch when you're well. In exchange, you and Lily have a roof and food. That's the deal." He stared at her like she was something he'd never seen before. "You barely know me." "I know enough." She held his gaze. "And I know that little girl deserves a chance. So do you." Samuel's eyes glistened. He looked away quickly, blinking hard. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice rough. "I don't know how to thank you." "You can start by finishing your soup. You're still too thin." He laughed, a real laugh this time, surprised and warm. Clara smiled despite herself. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside, something new had begun. The next morning brought silence, the kind that only comes after a heavy snow when the world is muffled and still. Clara woke before dawn as she always did, and lay in bed for a moment listening. Two sets of breathing came from down the hall, one deep and steady, one small and soft. She wasn't alone anymore. The thought hit her harder than she expected. For 3 years she'd woken to silence, eaten alone, worked alone, gone to bed alone. She'd told herself she liked it that way, that she didn't need anyone. Maybe she'd been lying. She got up dressed quietly and headed to the kitchen to start the fire. But when she rounded the corner, she stopped. Samuel was already there. He stood at the stove feeding kindling into the flames, his movements careful but sure. He looked better this morning, still thin, still pale, but steadier. More present. "You should be resting," Clara said. He didn't turn around. "Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd make myself useful. By stealing my morning chores. By trying to earn my keep." He turned then, and there was something in his face, determination maybe, or pride. "I'm not going to sit around while you do all the work. Not when you've done so much already." Clara crossed her arms. "You're still recovering." "I'm well enough to start a fire." He almost smiled. "I'm a doctor. Remember, I know my limits." She wanted to argue. But there was something in the way he stood, shoulders back, chin up, that reminded her of herself. The need to be useful, to prove you weren't a burden. "Fine," she said. "But if you collapse again, I'm not carrying you." "Fair enough." They worked in silence for a while, Clara making coffee, Samuel stoking the fire. It was strange sharing the morning ritual with someone. Strange, but not unpleasant. "Can I ask you something?" Samuel said eventually. Clara nodded. "Your husband, how did he die?" She poured 2 cups of coffee and handed him one. Her hands were steady. "Horse spooked. Threw him into the rocks. He broke his neck." She took a sip. 3 years ago next month." "I'm sorry." "So am I." She sat down at the table. "He wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But he was good to me, and he believed in this place, believed we could make something of it." "And you have." Clara laughed bitterly. "Barely. His father, Judge Whitmore, has been trying to take it back since the funeral. Says a woman can't run a ranch alone. Says it's not proper." Samuel sat across from her. "But you've held on. Stubborn, I guess." "Strong," he corrected. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Two people who'd been knocked down and refused to stay there. "I know something about stubborn," Samuel said quietly. "Sarah was the same way. Wouldn't give up on anything. Wouldn't let go." He looked into his coffee cup. "I think that's why Lily stopped talking. She was holding on so tight to her mother that when Sarah died, something in her just broke." Clara's chest ached. "She'll heal, in time." "You really believe that?" "I have to." She set down her cup. "Because if I stop believing people can heal, I have to stop believing it about myself. And I can't do that. Not yet." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Thank you," he said. "For everything. For believing." Clara didn't pull away. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We've got a long winter ahead." Good. The storm broke 3 days later. Clara stood on the porch, breathing in the sharp, clean air, watching the sun paint the snow gold and pink. Behind her, Lily pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "Come on," Clara called to her. "Let's go see the horses." Lily's eyes went wide. She looked at Samuel, who sat at the kitchen table, still moving slow, but stronger every day. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll be right here when you get back." Lily hesitated. Then she grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her toward the door. The stable was cold but dry, the air thick with the smell of hay and horses. Clara led Lily down the row of stalls, introducing each one. "This is Ranger. He's the oldest. Don't let him fool you. He's gentle as a kitten." She moved to the next stall. "This is Bella. She's moody, but she's fast. Best horse I've ever had." Lily's hand tightened in Clara's as they reached the last stall. "And this," Clara said, "is Star." The foal was small and perfect chestnut coat, gleaming white star bright on her forehead. She nickered softly and pressed her nose against the stall door. Lily reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed the foal's soft muzzle. For a moment, nothing happened. Then so quiet Clara almost missed it. Pretty. Clara's heart stopped. She looked down at Lily, not daring to breathe. Lily's hand was still on the horse's nose. Her eyes were still fixed on Star, but her lips were moving. Pretty horse. Clara dropped to her knees, putting herself at Lily's level. Tears burned in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, she is. She's very pretty." Lily finally looked at her, and for the first time since Clara had found her in the snow, something like a smile crossed the little girl's face. "Can I?" Lily's voice was rough, unused. "Can I name her?" Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded. Lily thought for a moment, her small brow furrowed. Then, "Hope. I want to call her Hope." Clara pulled the child into her arms and held on tight. "That's perfect," she said. "That's absolutely perfect." When they got back to the house, Samuel was waiting on the porch. He took one look at Clara's face, the tears, the smile, and went pale. "What happened? Is she hurt? Is Uncle Sam?" He froze. Lily walked toward him, slow and steady. She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps and looked up at him. "I named the horse," she said. "Her name is Hope." Samuel made a sound, half laugh, half sob. He dropped to his knees and caught Lily as she ran into his arms. "You talked," he whispered. "You talked, sweetheart. You talked." Clara watched them, the man crying into his niece's hair, the little girl holding on to him like she'd never let go, and felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been frozen for 3 years finally began to thaw. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know if Holloway's men would find them, or if Judge Whitmore would make his move, or if any of them would survive the winter. But right now, in this moment, on this porch, in the golden light of a December afternoon, there was hope. And that was enough. The days that followed felt like something borrowed from another life. Clara woke each morning to the sound of movement in the house. Samuel's footsteps in the kitchen, Lily's soft humming by the fire. Sounds she'd forgotten could exist. Sounds that made the silence of the past 3 years feel like a wound she hadn't known she was carrying. Samuel healed faster than she'd expected. Within a week, he was up before dawn chopping wood, mending fences, doing the work of 2 men like he had something to prove. Maybe he did. Clara understood that kind of drive, the need to be useful, to earn your place, to show the world you weren't as broken as it thought. "You're going to hurt yourself," she told him one morning, watching him haul a fence post out of the frozen ground. "That thing's been stuck for 2 winters. It's not going anywhere." Samuel wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cold. "It's coming out today." "Stubborn fool." "Takes one to know one." She almost smiled. Lily had started talking more. Not a lot, just a word here, a sentence there, but each one felt like a gift. She followed Clara around the ranch like a shadow, watching everything with those two old eyes, asking questions in her rough, unused voice. Why do horses sleep standing up? What's that bird called? Can I help? That last one came most often. Can I help feed the chickens? Can I help brush Bella? Can I help make bread? Clara said yes every time, even when it would have been faster to do it herself. There was something healing in watching Lily's small hands learn to work and seeing purpose replace the emptiness in her eyes. One afternoon, Clara found Lily in the stable standing on a stool to reach Hope's mane. She was braiding it badly, but with fierce concentration. "That's looking good," Clara said. Lily didn't turn around. "Mama used to braid my hair every morning. She said it was our special time." Clara's throat tightened. She walked over and stood beside the stool. "Would you like me to braid your hair sometime?" Lily's hand stopped moving. She was quiet for so long that Clara thought she'd said the wrong thing. Then barely a whisper, "Yes, please." That night after supper, Clara sat Lily down by the fire and worked a brush through her tangled hair. Samuel watched from the kitchen table, pretending to read an old newspaper, but Clara caught him looking. His eyes were wet. She didn't say anything. Some moments didn't need words. 2 weeks after the storm, the world finally opened up again. The road into town became passable, and Clara knew she couldn't put off the supply run any longer. They were low on flour salt and lamp oil. More importantly, she needed to know what people were saying. Small towns had long memories and loose tongues. A stranger showing up at a widow's ranch in the middle of winter, that was the kind of story that spread faster than fever. "I'm going into town tomorrow," she announced at breakfast. Samuel looked up sharply. "Is that wise?" "We need supplies, and I need to show my face. Let folks know everything's normal." "Everything's not normal. They don't need to know that." He set down his fork. "I should come with you." "No." Clara's voice was firm. "You stay here with Lily. If anyone asks questions, I'll handle it." "Clara, this is my town, Samuel. These are my people. I know how to manage them." He wanted to argue. She could see it in the set of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. But he didn't. "Be careful," he said quietly. "Always am." The ride into town took 3 hours through snow that came up to rangers' knees in some places. Clara didn't mind. The cold gave her time to think, to plan what she'd say if anyone asked about the smoke coming from her chimney, about the tracks in her yard, about the man and child that old Sam Whitlow had probably already told everyone about. Cold Spring looked the same as always. A cluster of wooden buildings huddled against the Wyoming winter smoke, rising from every chimney horses tied up outside the saloon. Clara rode straight to the general store, keeping her eyes forward, her face neutral. Inside, Mrs. Patterson was arranging canned goods on a shelf. She turned when the bell rang, and her eyes went wide. "Clara Whitmore. Haven't seen you in weeks." "Been busy." Clara handed over her list. "Storm kept me in." Mrs. Patterson's voice dripped with unspoken questions. "Heard you had some excitement out your way." "Did you now?" "Sam Whitlow came through last week. Said he saw a man walking the mountain road with 2 babies. Said the man looked half dead." Clara kept her face blank. "Sam Whitlow sees a lot of things after he's been in the whiskey." "So there's no truth to it." "I didn't say that." Mrs. Patterson leaned forward, hungry for gossip. "Well, is there a man at your place, or isn't there?" Clara met her eyes. "There's a man. His name is Samuel Brennan. He's a widower with a niece. They got caught in the storm and I gave them shelter. He's been helping with the ranch in exchange for room and board. That's all." "That's all. That's all." Mrs. Patterson's mouth twisted. "Folks are going to talk Clara. A single woman taking in a strange man. Folks always talk. They talked when I didn't sell after Daniel died. They talked when I refused to move into town. They'll talk now." Clara picked up her basket. "I've never let talk stop me before. I don't intend to start." She paid for her supplies and walked out before Mrs. Patterson could say another word. But the damage was done. By the time she'd finished her errands, the post office, the feed store, the blacksmith, she could feel eyes following her everywhere. Whispers stopped when she approached. Conversations resumed when she passed. Let them talk, she told herself. Let them think what they want. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. She was loading the last of the supplies onto Ranger when a voice stopped her cold. "Clara." She turned slowly. Judge Harlan Whitmore stood on the boardwalk outside the courthouse, his black coat immaculate, his silver hair gleaming in the winter sun. He looked exactly as he always did, distinguished, powerful, utterly sure of himself. Clara's father-in-law, the man who'd been trying to take her ranch for 3 years. "Judge," she said evenly. He walked toward her, his cane clicking against the frozen wood. "I heard you've taken in a boarder." "Word travels fast." "It does when the word concerns my son's widow." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see the calculation in his eyes. "Who is this man?" "A traveler. He got caught in the storm." "And you just took him in?" "A stranger. He had a child with him. A little girl. I wasn't going to let them freeze to death." Something flickered across Harlan's face. "How charitable of you. I'm not looking for your approval." "No." His voice hardened. "You never have been. That's always been your problem, Clara. You don't understand how things work. How they have to work." Clara's hands tightened on the reins. "I understand just fine. You want my land. You've wanted it since Daniel died. The answer is still no. This isn't about what I want. This is about what's proper, what's legal." He stepped closer. "A woman alone cannot hold that much property. The county has rules, standards. Standards you've been trying to use against me for 3 years. And now you've given me more ammunition." His smile was thin, cold. "A strange man living on your property, working your land. People will assume the worst, Clara. They'll say you're living in sin. They'll say you've abandoned your husband's memory." Clara felt heat rise in her chest. Daniel would have done the same thing. He would have helped someone in need. Daniel would have thought of his reputation, his family's reputation. Daniel wasn't as small as you. The words hung in the air between them. Harlan's face went rigid. "You have 3 months," he said quietly. "The stewardship clause in your deed requires a male authority to oversee the property if you remain unmarried after 5 years. Daniel died 3 years ago. The clock is ticking." Clara's blood went cold. "That clause is archaic. It's never been enforced. It's never had to be enforced. Most widows have the sense to remarry or sell." He leaned in. "You've had neither. And now with this situation, I have grounds to petition the court, to have the property transferred to family oversight." "You can't do that." "I can, and I will." He straightened. "Unless, of course, you come to your senses. Sell me the land at a fair price. Take Lily, if that's even her real name, and your mysterious boarder, and start fresh somewhere else. It's what's best for everyone." Clara's voice came out steady, though her hands were shaking. "I'm not selling. Not to you. Not ever." Harlan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. 3 months, Clara. I'll see you in court." He turned and walked away, his cane striking the boardwalk with each step like a judge's gavel. Clara stood there until he was gone, her heart pounding, her mind racing. Then she mounted Ranger and rode home as fast as the snow would allow. Samuel was waiting on the porch when she got back. He must have seen her face because he was down the steps before she'd even dismounted. "What happened?" Clara slid off Ranger and handed him the reins. Her legs felt weak. "We need to talk." Inside, Lily was napping by the fire, curled up under a blanket with one of Clara's old dolls clutched against her chest. Clara stood over her for a moment, watching her breathe, trying to steady herself. "Clara." Samuel's voice was low, urgent. What happened in town? She told him. All of it. The whispers, the stares, the confrontation with Harlan. The 3-month deadline. The stewardship clause. When she finished, Samuel was pale. This is my fault, he said. If I hadn't shown up, don't. Clara cut him off. Harlan's been looking for an excuse for years. If it wasn't you, it would have been something else. A bad harvest, a broken fence. He'd have found a way. But I gave him the way. I handed it to him. You didn't hand him anything. You were dying in a snowstorm with a child in your arms. That's not a crime. Samuel sank into a chair, his head in his hands. What are we going to do? Clara sat down across from him. She was tired, bone-tired, but her mind was clear. We fight. He looked up. How? The stewardship clause requires a male authority if I'm unmarried. So either I find a way to challenge the clause, or I... She stopped. Or you what? Clara couldn't look at him. Or I get married. The silence that followed was heavy thick with everything neither of them could say. Clara, Samuel said finally, his voice rough. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm not asking either. I'm just... stating facts. She stood up, walked to the window, stared out at nothing. I've survived 3 years alone. I can survive 3 more. But that little girl... She glanced at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. She needs stability. She needs a home. And you need protection from whatever's chasing you. You don't owe us anything. I know. She turned to face him. But I've been alone a long time, Samuel. Maybe too long. And these past few weeks with you and Lily here... She shook her head. I forgot what it felt like. To have someone to talk to at dinner. To hear footsteps in the house. To not wake up every morning wondering what the point of it all is. Samuel stood slowly. He crossed the room until he was standing right in front of her. Clara, if I married you, it wouldn't be because of the land, or because I need protection. His voice was barely a whisper. It would be because you're the strongest woman I've ever met. Because you took in 2 strangers in a storm and saved their lives. Because you held my niece when she cried and told her it was okay to feel. Clara's heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. Samuel, I'm not proposing. Not yet. I'm just telling you the truth. He reached out and took her hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. If you want to fight this alone, I'll support you. If you want me gone, I'll go. But if you want me to stay, really stay, then I will. For as long as you'll have me. Clara looked down at their joined hands. His fingers were rough, calloused from weeks of hard work. Warm. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I haven't let myself want anything in 3 years. Then take your time. Figure it out. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm not going anywhere. From the settle, a small voice spoke. Uncle Sam, Clara. They both turned. Lily was sitting up, rubbing her eyes, looking between them with sleepy confusion. What's wrong? Clara let go of Samuel's hand and walked over to the child. She knelt down, brushing hair back from Lily's face. Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. We were just talking. You looked sad. Clara smiled despite everything. I'm not sad. I'm just thinking. Lily considered this. Then she reached out and patted Clara's cheek with one small hand. Don't think too hard. Mama always said thinking too hard gives you wrinkles. Samuel laughed a real laugh, surprised and warm. Clara felt it spread through her like heat from a fire. Your mama sounds like she was very smart, Clara said. She was. Lily's voice was matter-of-fact. She was the smartest person in the whole world, except for maybe Uncle Sam. And maybe you. Clara pulled the child into her arms. I don't know about that. I do. Lily hugged her tight. You saved us. That means you're smart. Over Lily's shoulder, Clara caught Samuel's eye. He was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read, tender, hopeful, scared all at once. "We're going to figure this out," Clara said. "All three of us, together." Lily nodded against her shoulder. "Together." Samuel crossed the room and wrapped his arms around both of them. For a long moment, they just stayed like that, three broken people holding each other up. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the snow orange and gold. Inside, something new was taking root. The next morning, Clara rode to the one person she trusted to give her honest advice, Margaret O'Connell. Maggie, to everyone who knew her, ran the only boarding house in Cold Spring that served a decent meal. She was 58 years old, widowed twice, and had buried 2 sons in the war. Nothing shocked her. Nothing scared her. And she had a memory like a steel trap. "I wondered when you'd show up," Maggie said when Clara walked through her door. "Sit down. I'll make coffee." Clara sat at the small table by the kitchen window, watching Maggie move with the efficiency of a woman who'd spent her whole life working. The boarding house smelled like bacon and wood smoke, comforting, familiar. "So," Maggie set down 2 cups and lowered herself into a chair. "Tell me about this man of yours." "He's not my man." "Uh-huh. And the sky's not blue." Maggie took a sip of her coffee. "I've heard the stories, Clara. Half the town thinks you've lost your mind. The other half thinks you've lost something else entirely. What do you think?" Maggie studied her for a long moment. "I think you look better than you have in 3 years. Rested, almost happy. And I think that scares the hell out of you." Clara wrapped her hands around her cup. "Harlan came to see me yesterday. I heard. Mrs. Patterson was practically singing about it." Maggie's expression darkened. "What did he say?" Clara told her about the stewardship clause, the 3-month deadline, the threat of losing everything. When she finished, Maggie was shaking her head slowly. "That old bastard. He's been circling that land like a vulture for years. Daniel told me once before he died that his father was convinced there was something valuable on the property. Wouldn't say what. But Harlan doesn't chase things without reason." Clara frowned. "Valuable like what?" "I don't know, but I'd find out if I were you." Maggie leaned forward. "Now about this clause, it's real. I've seen it used before back when my first husband's family tried to take our farm. Didn't work for them because I remarried within the deadline, but they tried. What are my options? You could fight it in court, get a lawyer, argue that the clause is outdated, unenforceable." Maggie shrugged. "Might work, might not. Judge Wallace is fair, but the law is the law. Or you get married." Maggie's eyes were sharp. "This man Samuel, what's he to you?" "Really?" Clara didn't answer right away. She stared into her coffee, watching the steam curl and disappear. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "He's kind. He works hard. He loves that little girl more than anything in the world. And when I'm with him, I feel—" She struggled for the right word. "Less alone." Maggie nodded slowly. "That's more than a lot of marriages start with. It's not enough to build a life on. Maybe not, but it's a start." Maggie reached across the table and took Clara's hand. "Listen to me. I've been married twice. The first time for love, wild, passionate, consuming love. Thomas was beautiful and reckless, and he made me feel like I was flying. He also drank too much, gambled too much, and died in a bar fight when I was 23. Clara looked up surprised. Maggie never talked about her first husband. "The second time was for comfort. Henry wasn't handsome or exciting. He was steady, reliable. He showed up every day, did the work, came home to me every night. I didn't love him the way I loved Thomas, not at first. But after 20 years of waking up next to him, of raising our boys together, of holding each other through the hard times." Maggie's voice softened. "That was the deepest love I've ever known. The kind that grows slow and quiet and lasts forever." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, don't wait for lightning to strike. Sometimes the warmest fires are the ones you build yourself, one log at a time. Maggie squeezed her hand. This man came into your life for a reason. Maybe it was just the storm. Maybe it was something more. But the way you talk about him, the way your face changes when you say his name, there's something there, Clara. Don't be too proud to see it. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I'm scared, she whispered. Of course you are. Love is terrifying, especially the second time around when you know exactly how much it can hurt to lose someone. Maggie's grip tightened. But you know what's more terrifying, spending the rest of your life alone because you were too afraid to try. Clara sat with that for a long moment. Then she pulled her hand back and stood up. Thank you, Maggie. Any time. Now go home to that man of yours before he starts to worry. He's not... Get out of here. But Maggie was smiling. Clara rode home with Maggie's words echoing in her head. Sometimes the warmest fires are the ones you build yourself. She found Samuel in the stable teaching Lily how to brush Bella. The little girl was standing on a stool, running the brush along the horse's flank with careful concentration. Samuel stood behind her, guiding her hand, his voice low and patient. That's it. Long strokes. She likes that. She's so soft, Lily murmured. She is. You're doing great. Clara leaned against the stable door, watching them. Something warm spread through her chest. Samuel looked up and saw her. His face changed, softened, and he smiled. You're back. How was town? Informative. Clara walked over and stroked Bella's nose. Maggie sends her regards. Maggie O'Connell, the boarding house lady. You know her. Met her briefly when I first came through. She gave me directions to the mountain road. He paused. She's the one who told me there was a ranch up this way. Said the widow who lived there might have work. Clara stared at him. She sent you here. In a manner of speaking. Samuel's smile faded slightly. I didn't know it then, but I think she might have been doing more than giving directions. Lily tugged on Samuel's sleeve. Uncle Sam, can I give Hope a carrot? Sure, sweetheart. Check the bucket by the door. Lily hopped off the stool and ran toward the feed bucket, leaving Clara and Samuel alone. Maggie thinks I should marry you, Clara said quietly. Samuel went very still. She said that, not in so many words, but she implied it pretty strongly. Clara kept her eyes on Bella, not trusting herself to look at him. She also said that the land might be worth more than I know, that Harlan's been after it for a reason. What kind of reason? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then he stepped closer, close enough that Clara could feel the warmth of him. Clara, whatever you decide about us, I want you to know that I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you ask me to. She finally looked at him. His eyes were steady earnest, full of something she was afraid to name. I know, she said softly. Good. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered for just a moment longer than necessary. Now, let's go figure out what Harlan Whitmore is really after. From across the stable, Lily's voice rang out. Hope ate the whole carrot. She liked it. Clara smiled despite everything. Good girl. Now come on. It's time for supper. The three of them walked back to the house together, Lily between them, holding both their hands. The sun was setting behind the mountains, turning the sky pink and gold. Clara didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if she could beat Harlan, or if she was brave enough to let herself love again, or if any of them would make it through the winter. But right now, in this moment, she had two hands in hers, and that was enough to keep going. The answer came 3 days later, buried in a stack of old papers Clara found in Daniel's study. She'd avoided this room since his death. It still smelled like him leather and pipe tobacco and the faint mustiness of old books. His coat still hung on the back of the chair. His reading glasses still sat on the desk where he'd left them. But Maggie's words wouldn't leave her alone. Harlan doesn't chase things without reason. So Clara forced herself through the door, forced herself to sit at Daniel's desk, and started going through the drawers. Most of it was mundane. Bills, receipts, letters from suppliers, a few photographs their wedding day, the house when it was first built, Daniel's mother before she passed. Clara touched each one gently, letting the memories wash over her without drowning. Then she found the envelope. It was hidden at the very back of the bottom drawer, tucked behind a false panel she'd never noticed before. The paper was yellowed brittle with age. Inside was a single sheet covered in cramped handwriting. Clara read it once, then again. Then a third time, her heart pounding harder with each pass. Samuel. He came running, Lily close behind. What is it? What's wrong? Clara held up the letter. I know why Harlan wants this land. She spread the paper on the desk so they could both see. The letter was from a surveyor dated 15 years ago, addressed to Daniel's grandfather. Silver, Clara said. There's a silver deposit somewhere on this property. The surveyor found traces of it in the creek bed on the western edge. He recommended a full excavation, but Daniel's grandfather refused, said he didn't want miners tearing up his land. Samuel leaned closer. Does Harlan know about this? He must. This was his father's land before it was Daniel's. He probably found out years ago and has been waiting for a chance to get it back. Clara's hands were shaking. That's why he's been so persistent. That's why he won't give up. This land could be worth a fortune. And if you lose the stewardship case, he gets everything. The land, the house, the silver, all of it. Lily tugged on Clara's sleeve. What silver? Clara looked down at the child's worried face. She forced herself to smile. It's a kind of metal, sweetheart. Very valuable. Some people want it very badly. Bad people. Clara hesitated. Sometimes. Samuel straightened up, his expression grim. We need to tell someone. The sheriff, maybe. Or a lawyer. Tell them what? That my father-in-law wants land that legally might become his anyway. Clara shook her head. The stewardship clause is real. Unless I can challenge it in court, or find another way around it, Harlan wins. The silver just explains why he's so determined. Then we find another way. Clara looked at him. Samuel. I mean it. His voice was fierce. You've given us everything. Shelter, food, a home. I'm not going to stand by and watch someone take that from you. It's not your fight. The hell it isn't. The curse surprised her. Samuel rarely raised his voice, rarely showed anything but calm, steady patience. But now, his jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides. You took us in when you didn't have to, he said. You saved Lily's life. You saved mine. That makes this my fight too. Clara felt something crack inside her chest, not breaking, opening. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we fight together. Samuel's face softened. He reached out and took her hand. Together. Lily squirmed between them. Can I fight too? Clara laughed despite herself. You can help by being brave. Can you do that? Lily nodded solemnly. I can be very brave. I know you can. They spent the rest of the day planning. Clara would ride into town tomorrow and talk to Judge Wallace directly, not about the stewardship case, but about the silver. If there was any way to prove that Harlan had known about the deposit and hidden it from Daniel, it might give her leverage. Samuel would stay with Lily and keep working the ranch. The more productive it looked, the stronger their case for keeping it. That night, after Lily was asleep, Clara sat by the fire with Samuel. They didn't talk much, just sat together watching the flames, sharing the silence. Clara. She looked up. Samuel's face was serious. If this doesn't work, if Harlan wins, I want you to know that I'll take care of Lily, no matter what happens. You won't have to worry about her. Clara's throat tightened. Samuel, let me finish. He leaned forward. But I also want you to know that I don't intend to let him win. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. You've given us a chance at a real life, and I'm not going to let some greedy old man take that away." Clara studied his face. The firelight played across his features, turning his eyes gold. "You're a good man, Samuel Brennan. I'm a man who owes you everything. You don't owe me anything. Then let me give it anyway." He reached out and touched her cheek. "Let me be here. Let me help. Not because I have to, because I want to." Clara closed her eyes. His hand was warm against her skin. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. Not just of losing the land, of everything. Of letting myself need someone again. Of trusting someone and having them leave." "I'm not going to leave." "You don't know that. Anything could happen. You could get sick again. Those people from Missouri could find you. I could wake up one morning and you'd just be gone." "Clara," his voice was gentle but firm. "Look at me." She opened her eyes. Samuel was closer now, his face inches from hers. "I'm not going to leave. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Unless you tell me to go. Do you understand?" She nodded slowly. "Good." He pulled back slightly. "Now get some sleep. You've got a big day tomorrow." Clara didn't want to sleep. She wanted to stay here in this moment where everything felt possible. But Samuel was right. Tomorrow was going to be hard. She stood up, paused, then bent down and pressed a quick kiss to his forehead. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she walked to her room before she could do anything else. The ride into town the next morning was colder than usual. A bitter wind had picked up overnight, cutting through Clara's coat like knives. She hunched lower in the saddle and urged Ranger forward. Judge Wallace's office was on the second floor of the courthouse, a cramped room stuffed with books and papers and the perpetual smell of cigar smoke. He was a small man with a big mustache and eyes that saw everything. "Mrs. Whitmore." He gestured to a chair. "I had a feeling I'd be seeing you." Clara sat down, keeping her back straight. "You know why I'm here." "The stewardship case. Harlan's been making noise about it for weeks." Wallace leaned back in his chair. "I have to tell you, Mrs. Whitmore, the law is not on your side. The law is outdated." "Maybe so, but it's still the law." He folded his hands. "What do you want from me?" Clara pulled the letter from her coat and laid it on his desk. "I want you to read this." Wallace picked it up, squinting through his spectacles. His eyebrows rose as he read. "Silver," he murmured. "On my land. Harlan knew about it probably for years. That's why he's so desperate to get the property back." Wallace set down the letter. "This is interesting, but it doesn't change the legal situation. The stewardship clause is valid, unless you can prove fraud or coercion. What if Harlan hid this information from Daniel? What if Daniel never knew about the silver because his own father kept it from him?" Wallace was quiet for a moment. "That would be difficult to prove. And even if you could, it might not be enough to overturn the clause." Clara's heart sank. "So there's nothing I can do?" "I didn't say that." Wallace leaned forward. "There's one provision in the clause that might help you. It requires a male authority to oversee the property, but it doesn't specify what kind of authority. A husband, certainly, but also a business partner, or a legal guardian." Clara frowned. "I don't understand." "If you were to enter into a formal business arrangement with someone, a man, obviously because this county is full of backwards fools, it might satisfy the requirements of the clause without requiring marriage. A business partner. Exactly. Someone with a stake in the property legally recognized. It's not ideal, but it might buy you time while we figure out a more permanent solution." Clara's mind raced. A business partner. Samuel. How would that work legally? "You'd need to draw up a contract, something that gives your partner a vested interest in the property's success without transferring ownership. I could help you draft something." "And Harlan couldn't challenge it." "He could try. But if the paperwork is solid and if your partner is legitimate, it would at least force him to court. And in court, things can go either way. Wallace's eyes were sharp. Do you have someone in mind? Clara nodded slowly. I think I might. She rode home faster than she'd come, her mind spinning with possibilities. A business partnership. It wasn't marriage. It didn't carry the same weight, the same commitment. But it would bind her and Samuel together in a way that was harder to break. Was that what she wanted? She wasn't sure. But it was better than losing everything. Samuel was waiting on the porch when she got back. His face was tight, worried. What happened? What did he say? Clara dismounted and handed him the reins. We need to talk, inside. Lily was in the kitchen drawing pictures with the charcoal sticks Clara had given her. She looked up when they came in. Clara, look what I made. She held up a piece of paper. 3 stick figures stood in front of a house holding hands. One tall one, medium, one small. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Clara's voice caught. Is that us? Lily nodded proudly. That's you and Uncle Sam and me. We're a family. Clara looked at Samuel. He was staring at the drawing with an expression she couldn't read. Can you keep drawing for a little while? Clara asked. Uncle Sam and I need to talk. Okay. Lily was already reaching for another piece of paper. Clara led Samuel to the back room and closed the door. She told him everything: the conversation with Wallace, the business partnership idea, the possibility of buying time. When she finished, Samuel was quiet for a long moment. So you want me to be your business partner? I want you to consider it. It's not a proposal. It's practical. A way to protect the land without having to marry me. Clara winced. I didn't mean it like that. I know. Samuel's voice was gentle. I understand, Clara, really. You're not ready for marriage. Maybe you'll never be ready. That's okay. I'm not asking for anything you can't give. But, he took a breath. But I need you to understand something. If I sign this partnership, it's not just business to me. It's a commitment. A promise to stay, to help, to be part of this family, whatever that means. He stepped closer. Can you accept that? Clara looked into his eyes. Steady. Honest. Full of something she was afraid to name but couldn't look away from. Yes, she whispered. I can accept that. Then let's do it. She felt relief wash through her, and something else. Something warmer. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing. What? If you ever change your mind about us, about anything, tell me. Don't push me away because you're scared. Don't pretend everything's fine when it isn't. Just talk to me. Clara nodded. I promise. Good. He smiled, then really smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Now let's go tell Lily she's going to have a permanent home. They walked back to the kitchen together. Lily looked up from her drawing. Are you done talking? We are. Clara knelt down beside her. Lily, how would you feel about staying here? Not just for a little while. Forever. Lily's eyes went wide. Forever. Forever. This would be your home. You and Uncle Sam and me. A family. Lily looked at Samuel, then back at Clara. Like in my picture. Exactly like in your picture. Lily threw herself into Clara's arms. Yes, 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 yes. Clara held her tight, laughing and crying at the same time. Over Lily's shoulder she saw Samuel watching them, his own eyes wet. Family, Lily murmured against Clara's neck. I have a family again. You do, sweetheart, you do. The next few days passed in a blur of paperwork and planning. Judge Wallace drew up the partnership contract, and Clara and Samuel signed it in his office with Maggie and the sheriff as witnesses. It's done, Wallace said, stamping the final page. Congratulations, you're now legal business partners. Clara shook his hand. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Harlan won't take this lying down. He'll challenge it. Let him try. They rode home in high spirits. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt like she could breathe. Like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. That feeling lasted exactly 3 days. Clara was in the stable brushing Bella when she heard hoofbeats on the road. Fast ones. Too fast for a casual visitor. She grabbed her rifle and stepped outside just as a rider came into view. It wasn't anyone she recognized. A man in a long gray coat sitting tall on a black horse. He rode with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent his whole life in the saddle. His face was hard-weathered, with a thin scar running down his left cheek. He stopped at the edge of the yard and tipped his hat. "Afternoon, ma'am. I'm looking for a man named Samuel Brennan." Clara's blood went cold. "Never heard of him." The stranger smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "That's funny, because I've got witnesses saying he's been living here for the past month, working your land, sleeping under your roof." He pulled a badge from his coat. "Name's Vernon Cole, deputy marshal out of Missouri. I've got a warrant for Mr. Brennan's arrest." Clara's hands tightened on the rifle. "On what charge?" "Murder." Cole's voice was flat. "He killed a man named Richard Holloway back in Jefferson Crossing. Beat him to death with his bare hands." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Cole dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "The warrant says otherwise, and I've got orders to bring him back alive if possible, dead if necessary." Clara raised the rifle. "You take one more step and I'll shoot you where you stand." Cole stopped. His smile faded. "Ma'am, I understand you've got feelings for this man. But he's a murderer, a fugitive. Whatever he told you about his past, I guarantee it's not the whole truth." "I know exactly what happened. Holloway attacked his woman. Samuel defended her. That's not murder, that's justice. That's not for you to decide. Or me. That's for a court of law." Cole's voice hardened. "Now I'm going to give you one chance to hand him over peacefully. If you don't, I'll come back with more men and things will get ugly." "They're already ugly. They can get worse. Trust me." The door to the house opened. Samuel stepped out onto the porch, his face pale but calm. "Clara, put the gun down." "Samuel, no. He's right. This isn't your fight." Samuel walked down the steps slowly. "Deputy Cole, I'm Samuel Brennan. I'll come with you." Cole's eyebrows rose. "Well, that's unexpected." "Samuel, you can't." Clara's voice cracked. "If you go back there, they'll hang you." "Maybe, maybe not." Samuel's eyes met hers. "But I won't let you get hurt trying to protect me. I've been running for too long. It's time to face what happened." "You're innocent. Then I'll prove it in court." He turned back to Cole. "Give me 5 minutes to say goodbye." Cole considered this. Then he nodded. 5 minutes, then we ride." Samuel walked to Clara. She was shaking the rifle still clutched in her hands. "Don't," she whispered. "Please, there has to be another way." "There isn't." He gently took the rifle from her hands and set it aside. "Clara, listen to me. You've given me more than I ever deserved. A home, a family, hope." His voice broke slightly. "But this is something I have to do. For Lily, for you, for myself." "What about the partnership, the land?" "The contract stands whether I'm here or not. You'll be protected." He cupped her face in his hands. "Take care of Lily. Promise me." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I promise." "Tell her I love her. Tell her I'll come back if I can." "Samuel." He kissed her. It wasn't soft or gentle. It was desperate, hungry, full of everything they'd never said and might never get the chance to say. Clara kissed him back with equal fierceness, trying to pour 3 years of loneliness and 3 weeks of hope into a single moment. When they finally broke apart, they were both crying. "I love you," Samuel said quietly. "I know I shouldn't say it. I know the timing is wrong, but I need you to know. Whatever happens, I love you." Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded, her heart breaking. Samuel turned and walked toward Cole. The deputy was already mounting his horse. "Wait." The voice was small, broken, coming from the porch. Lily stood in the doorway, her face white with terror. "Uncle Sam, where are you going?" Samuel's whole body tensed. He turned back. "I have to go away for a little while, sweetheart. But Clara's going to take care of you. You'll be safe here." "No." Lily ran down the steps and threw herself at him. "No, no, no, you can't leave. You promised you'd never leave." Samuel dropped to his knees and held her tight. I know I promised. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Don't go." Lily was sobbing now. "Please don't go. I'll be good. I'll be so good. Just don't leave me." Clara's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Samuel pulled back and looked into Lily's eyes. His own were streaming. "Listen to me. This isn't because of anything you did. You're perfect. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And I love you more than anything in the world." "Then stay." "I can't. Not right now." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "But I need you to be brave. Can you do that? Can you be brave for me?" Lily's lower lip trembled. "I'll try." "That's my girl." He kissed her forehead. "Take care of Clara. She needs you." "I will." Samuel stood up slowly. He looked at Clara one last time. "I'll come back," he said. "I swear to God, I'll come back." Then he walked to Cole's horse and mounted behind the deputy. Clara watched them ride away until they disappeared over the ridge. Then she sank to her knees in the frozen mud, gathered Lily into her arms, and wept. The house felt empty that night. Clara went through the motions, cooking dinner, putting Lily to bed, banking the fire, but everything felt hollow. Wrong. Like the world had shifted off its axis, and nothing would ever be right again. Lily cried herself to sleep. Clara sat beside her bed, stroking her hair, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. "He'll come back. Everything will be okay. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But the words felt thin, fragile. After Lily finally drifted off, Clara walked to the window and stared out at the darkness. Samuel was out there somewhere, cold, alone, heading toward a trial that was rigged against him. And she was here, helpless. No, not helpless. Clara's jaw tightened. She wasn't going to sit here and wait for news. She wasn't going to let some corrupt family in Missouri destroy the only man she'd loved since Daniel. She was going to fight. First thing tomorrow, she'd ride to town, talk to Judge Wallace, find out if there was any legal way to help Samuel, a lawyer, and appeal anything. Then she'd wire Jefferson Crossing, find out who else had been there that night. The nurse who'd treated Holloway's wife, the neighbors who might have seen what really happened. Someone had to know the truth. And if that didn't work, if the law failed, she'd find another way. Clara Whitmore had survived 3 years alone on this ranch. She'd fought off wolves and weather and her own father-in-law. She'd taken in 2 strangers and made them family. She wasn't going to lose them now, not without a fight. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table with Daniel's old maps spread before her, tracing the route to Missouri with her finger. 3 weeks by wagon, 2 weeks by horse if you rode hard. Samuel and Cole had a day's head start, but they'd be moving slow. One horse carrying 2 men couldn't push too fast. If she left now, if she rode through the night, she might catch them before they reached the state line. But she couldn't leave Lily. The thought hit her like a physical blow. She dropped her head into her hands and let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. "Clara!" She looked up. Lily stood in the doorway, clutching the old doll Clara had given her, her face pale in the lamplight. "Sweetheart, you should be asleep." "I can't sleep." Lily's voice was small, broken. "I keep thinking Uncle Sam is going to come back, but he doesn't." Clara pushed back from the table and held out her arms. Lily ran to her, climbing into her lap like she was half her age. "I miss him," Lily whispered. "I know. I miss him too." "Is he going to die?" The question hit Clara like a knife. She pulled Lily closer, pressing her face into the child's hair. "No, no, sweetheart. He's not going to die. I won't let that happen. Promise?" Clara's throat tightened. She shouldn't promise. She couldn't know what would happen, couldn't control any of it. But Lily needed her to say it. Needed something to hold on to. "I promise." They sat like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in the flickering lamplight. Eventually, Lily's breathing evened out her small body, going limp with exhaustion. Clara carried her back to bed, tucked the blankets around her, and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I'll bring him back," she whispered, "whatever it takes." At first light, Clara rode to Maggie's. The older woman took one look at her face and pulled her inside without a word. She poured coffee, set out bread, and waited. Clara told her everything. The deputy, the warrant, Samuel's confession, the way he'd kissed her goodbye like it was the last time. When she finished, Maggie was quiet for a long moment. "Well," she said finally, "that's a hell of a mess." Clara laughed bitterly. "That's one way to put it. What are you going to do? Fight. Find evidence. Prove he's innocent." "How?" Clara pulled a folded paper from her pocket. She'd found it in Samuel's coat that morning, a letter he'd been writing never finished. "He mentioned a nurse," Clara said. "A woman who was there the night Holloway's wife died. She saw what really happened. Samuel said she was the only one who knew the truth." Maggie took the letter and read it. Her eyebrows rose. "Ruth Ann Calloway. Lives in St. Joseph now, apparently." She looked up. "That's a long way, Clara." "I know. And you'd have to leave Lily." Clara's jaw tightened. "I know that too." Maggie studied her for a long moment. Then she set down the letter and reached across the table. "Leave her with me." Clara blinked. "What?" "Lily, leave her with me while you go." Maggie's voice was firm. "I've got room. I've got time. And that child needs someone steady while you're off saving her uncle." "Maggie, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Maggie squeezed her hand. "Clara, that man loves you. Anyone with eyes can see it. And you love him whether you're ready to admit it or not. Don't let him hang because you were too proud to accept help." Clara felt tears burn her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." "Bring him back alive. That'll be thanks enough." Clara rode home, packed a bag, and sat Lily down at the kitchen table. "I have to go away for a little while," she said carefully. "To help Uncle Sam." Lily's face crumpled. "No, you can't leave too." "I have to, sweetheart. He needs me. I need you." Clara pulled her into a tight hug. I know you do, but Mrs. O'Connell is going to take care of you while I'm gone. She's kind and warm, and she makes the best biscuits in the whole county. You'll be safe with her." Lily was crying now, her small body shaking. "What if you don't come back? What if you leave like Mama did?" Clara's heart broke. She pulled back and looked into Lily's eyes. "Listen to me. Your Mama didn't want to leave you. She fought as hard as she could to stay. But sometimes bad things happen that we can't control." She wiped Lily's tears with her thumb. "I'm not sick. I'm not going somewhere dangerous. I'm going to find the truth and bring your uncle home. And then we're all going to be a family again." "Okay?" Lily sniffled. "You promise?" "I promise." "Cross your heart." Clara made an X over her chest. "Cross my heart." Lily threw her arms around Clara's neck. "I love you." The words hit Clara like a wave. She held Lily tight, tears streaming down her own face. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." An hour later, Clara left Lily at Maggie's boarding house with a trunk of clothes, her drawings, and the doll she wouldn't let go of. The goodbye was harder than anything Clara had done since burying Daniel, but she forced herself to mount Ranger and ride away. She had work to do. The journey to St. Joseph took 12 days. Clara pushed hard, stopping only when Ranger needed rest, sleeping in barns and under bridges when she couldn't find an inn. She ate when she remembered to drink water from streams and kept moving forward. On the 8th day, she caught up with Vern and Cole. She saw them from a ridge, two figures on horseback, making their way along the main road. Samuel was riding behind Cole now, hands bound in front of him. Even from a distance, Clara could see how thin he'd gotten, how defeated he looked. Her hand went to the rifle at her side. She could do it. One shot. Cole would never see it coming. But then Samuel would be a fugitive forever, and Clara would be a murderer. She lowered her hand. There had to be another way. She followed them for 2 more days, keeping her distance, watching. Cole was careful. He checked their back trail every few hours, kept his hand near his gun, never let Samuel out of his sight. But he also talked. Clara couldn't hear the words, but she could see Samuel responding, nodding, sometimes even laughing. They weren't enemies. They were just 2 men caught up in something bigger than themselves. On the 10th day, Clara made her move. She rode down to the road and positioned herself directly in Cole's path. When he came around the bend, she was waiting. "Afternoon, Deputy." Cole's hand went to his gun. "Mrs. Whitmore, I should have known. I'm not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" Clara looked past him to Samuel. His face had gone pale with shock. "Clara, what are you doing?" "What I should have done days ago." She turned back to Cole. "I know you're just doing your job. I know you've got orders. But the man you're taking back to Missouri is innocent." Cole's expression didn't change. "That's not for me to decide." "No, it's for a jury to decide. But what kind of jury is he going to get in a town where the dead man's brother is the sheriff?" Clara urged Ranger forward until she was close enough to touch Cole's horse. "You seem like a decent man, Deputy. You've been kind to him on this journey. I saw it." Cole shifted uncomfortably. "What's your point?" "My point is that you know something's wrong. You've been doing this job long enough to smell when a case is rotten, and this one stinks." Cole was quiet for a long moment. His eyes flicked to Samuel, then back to Clara. "I've got a warrant. I've got orders. I don't have the authority to just let him go." "I'm not asking you to let him go. I'm asking you to give me time." Clara's voice was steady. "There's a witness, a nurse named Ruth Ann Calloway. She was there the night Holloway's wife died. She knows what really happened." "And where is this witness?" "St. Joseph. I'm on my way there now." Cole frowned. "How do you know she'll talk?" "I don't, but I have to try." Clara looked at Samuel. "He saved my life. He saved his niece's life. He's the best man I've ever known, and I'm not going to let him die for something he didn't do." Samuel's eyes were wet. "Clara, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't tell me to go home. Don't tell me this isn't my fight. I already heard that speech. I didn't listen then, and I'm not listening now." Cole let out a slow breath. "You're a stubborn woman, Mrs. Whitmore." "I've been told." He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he dismounted and walked to Clara's horse. "I can give you 3 days." Clara's heart jumped. "What?" "3 days. I'll take a detour through Kansas City. Say my horse threw a shoe slowed us down. That'll give you time to get to St. Joseph and find your witness." "Why would you do that?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Because my father was hanged for a crime he didn't commit. I was 12 years old. I watched them put the rope around his neck." He looked away. "A year later they found the real killer. Too late to save my pa, but not too late for me to learn what justice really means." Clara reached out and touched his arm. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. If you don't have proof in 3 days, I'm taking him in. That's the deal." "I'll have proof." Cole nodded once. Then he turned and walked back to his horse. Samuel caught Clara's eye. "I love you," he mouthed. She smiled through her tears. "I know." Then she kicked Ranger into a gallop and rode north. St. Joseph was bigger than Clara expected. Sprawling streets, brick buildings, crowds of people moving in every direction. She felt lost the moment she rode through the gates. But she didn't have time to be lost. She asked at the first general store she found. "Ruth Ann Calloway, used to be a nurse. Anyone know where I can find her?" The shopkeeper shook his head. "Name doesn't ring a bell." She asked at the post office, the boarding house, the church. Nothing. By nightfall, Clara was exhausted, frustrated, and running out of options. She found a cheap room at an inn and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. 3 days. She had 3 days to find one woman in a city of thousands. It was impossible. No. She pushed herself up. Nothing was impossible. She just had to think. Ruth Ann was a nurse. Nurses worked at hospitals, at doctors' offices, at clinics. Tomorrow she'd start there. The next morning, Clara visited every medical establishment in St. Joseph. Most had never heard of Ruth Ann Calloway. A few remembered the name, but didn't know where she'd gone. By afternoon, Clara was desperate. She was leaving yet another doctor's office when an old woman stopped her on the street. "You're looking for Ruth Ann." Clara spun around. "You know her?" The woman nodded slowly. She was small and bent, with sharp eyes and a face lined with years of hard living. "Used to. She helped deliver my grandson 10 years back. Sweet woman. Quiet." "Do you know where she lives?" "She moved out of the city a few years ago. Some trouble, I think. Something to do with a case back east." The woman squinted at Clara. "You're not from Missouri, are you?" "Wyoming. Long way to travel for a nurse." Clara's throat tightened. "She's the only one who can save someone I love." The old woman studied her for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a scrap of paper. "She's got a little place about 5 miles south of here, by the river. Can't miss it, there's a big oak tree out front with a swing." Clara took the paper with shaking hands. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Go save your man, honey. Lord knows this world needs more people willing to fight for love." Clara found the house just before sunset. It was small, neat, with a garden out front and smoke rising from the chimney. And there, exactly as the old woman had described, was a massive oak tree with a wooden swing hanging from its branches. Clara dismounted on shaking legs and walked to the door. She knocked 3 times. Silence. She knocked again. "Go away." A woman's voice muffled through the wood. "I don't want any visitors." "Mrs. Calloway." "My name is Clara Whitmore. I've come from Wyoming. I need to talk to you about Samuel Brennan." Silence again, longer this time. Then the door opened a crack, and a pair of tired blue eyes peered out. "Samuel." The voice was different now, scared. Is he alive?" "For now, but not for much longer unless you help me." The door opened wider. Ruth Ann Calloway was younger than Clara expected, maybe 40, with graying hair and a face that had once been pretty but was now worn with worry. "Come in," she said quietly. "Quickly." Inside the house was sparse but clean. Ruth Ann gestured to a chair and poured 2 cups of tea with hands that trembled slightly. "I knew someone would come eventually," she said. "I've been waiting for years, dreading it." "Tell me what happened, the night Holloway's wife died." Ruth Ann sat down heavily. "I was working at the hospital in Jefferson Crossing. Samuel Dr. Brennan was the best physician I'd ever seen. Compassionate, careful. He genuinely cared about his patients." "And Eleanor Holloway?" Ruth Ann's face darkened. "She was dying when they brought her in. Consumption. There was nothing anyone could have done, the disease was too advanced. Samuel did everything possible, stayed with her through the night, held her hand when she passed." "So why did Richard Holloway blame Samuel?" Ruth Ann looked down at her tea. "Because he needed someone to blame, and because Samuel knew the truth." Clara leaned forward. "What truth?" "Eleanor didn't die from consumption alone. She was poisoned." Ruth Ann's voice dropped to a whisper. Richard had been putting arsenic in her medicine for months. Small doses, nothing that would show right away. He wanted her gone so he could marry his mistress. Clara felt sick. Samuel knew. He suspected. He told me about it the night before Eleanor died, said he was going to report it to the sheriff. Ruth Ann laughed bitterly. The sheriff who was Richard's brother. So Holloway killed his own wife and framed Samuel. Yes, and when Samuel confronted him, Holloway attacked him. Ruth Ann nodded. I wasn't there for that part, but I heard what happened after. Samuel defended himself. Holloway fell and hit his head, and suddenly the man who murdered his own wife was dead, and the doctor who tried to save her was being called a killer. Clara's hands were shaking. Why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you tell anyone? Ruth Ann's eyes filled with tears. Because Richard's brother threatened me. Said if I said one word he'd make sure I disappeared. I was scared. I ran. She looked up at Clara with an expression of pure anguish. I've hated myself every day since. I let an innocent man take the blame for something he didn't do. Clara reached across the table and took Ruth Ann's hand. It's not too late. What do you mean? Come back with me. Testify. Tell the truth. Ruth Ann pulled her hand away. I can't. They'll kill me. The Holloways have money power. Samuel has a 6-year-old niece who's waiting for him to come home. Clara's voice was fierce. She lost her mother 3 months ago. Samuel is all she has left, and right now he's being taken back to Missouri to stand trial for a crime he didn't commit. Ruth Ann was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry isn't enough. Clara stood up. I'm not asking you to be brave for yourself. I'm asking you to be brave for a little girl named Lily, who cries herself to sleep every night, wondering if she's ever going to see her uncle again. Ruth Ann flinched like she'd been struck. I know you're scared, Clara continued. I'm scared too. But sometimes fear isn't a stop sign. It's a warning. You pay attention, but you keep walking. The room was silent except for Ruth Ann's ragged breathing. Finally, she looked up. One condition. Clara's heart jumped. Anything. If I testify, I want protection. A new name, a new place to live. Somewhere the Holloways can't find me. Done. I'll make sure of it. Ruth Ann wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Then I'll do it. For Lily. For Samuel. For the woman I should have been years ago. Clara pulled her into a hug. Thank you. Thank you. They left at dawn. Clara pushed the pace hard, knowing every hour counted. Ruth Ann wasn't much of a rider, but she held on without complaint, her face set with determination. On the second day, they crossed into Missouri. On the third day, they caught up with Cole. He was waiting at a crossroads just outside Kansas City, exactly where he'd said he'd be. When he saw Clara riding toward him with another woman, his eyebrows rose. You found her? I found her. Cole looked at Ruth Ann. You're the witness. Ruth Ann straightened in her saddle. I am. And I'm ready to tell the truth. Cole studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, let's go save your doctor. Samuel looked up when he heard the hoofbeats. He was sitting against a tree, hands still bound, his face hollow with exhaustion and defeat. When he saw Clara, his whole body went rigid. Clara! What how? She dismounted and ran to him, dropping to her knees in the dirt. I found her. Ruth Ann. She's going to testify. Samuel's eyes went wide. He looked past Clara to where Ruth Ann sat on her horse, watching him with tears streaming down her face. Ruth Ann! I'm sorry, Samuel. Her voice cracked. I should have spoken up years ago. I was a coward. You were scared. There's a difference. Ruth Ann shook her head. Not enough of one. But I'm here now. And I'm going to tell everyone what really happened. Samuel's hands were shaking. Clara reached out and took them in hers. It's over, she whispered. It's finally going to be over. He looked at her with an expression she'd never seen before, wonder, gratitude, love, all tangled together. You came for me. Of course I came for you. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought... His voice broke. I thought I'd never see you again. Clara cupped his face in her hands. I told you. I promised Lily. I keep my promises. Samuel laughed, half laugh, half sob, and pressed his forehead against hers. I love you. I love you too. Cole cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but we've got a trial to get to. Clara helped Samuel to his feet. His hands were still bound, but he walked taller now, straighter. They rode into Jefferson Crossing together. The trial lasted 3 days. Ruth Ann testified first. She told the court everything, the arsenic, the cover-up, the threats. She was calm, clear, unwavering. When Richard Holloway's brother tried to discredit her, she stood her ground. I was there, she said. I saw the medical records. I know what happened. Then Samuel testified. He told his story from the beginning, meeting Eleanor, diagnosing her illness, discovering the poisoning. He described confronting Richard, the fight, the fall. I didn't mean to kill him, Samuel said quietly. I was defending myself, and I was trying to get justice for his wife. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Clara sat in the gallery with her hands clasped tight, barely breathing. Ruth Ann sat beside her, equally tense. When the foreman stood, the whole room went silent. On the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant not guilty. Clara let out a sob of relief. Ruth Ann grabbed her hand and squeezed. On the charge of manslaughter, we find the defendant not guilty. The courtroom erupted. People were shouting, crying, arguing. But Clara couldn't hear any of it. She was already pushing through the crowd, running toward Samuel. He met her halfway, arms open. She crashed into him hard enough to knock them both off balance. You're free, she gasped. You're free. Because of you. He pulled back and looked into her eyes. Clara, I don't know how to... She kissed him, right there in the middle of the courtroom, in front of God and everyone. She kissed him like she'd wanted to since that first night by the fire, like she'd been afraid to want for 3 years, like she'd never kiss anyone again. When they finally broke apart, the crowd had gone quiet. Clara didn't care. Take me home, she said. Take me home to Lily. Samuel smiled a real smile, bright and unguarded. Yes, ma'am. The ride back to Wyoming took 3 weeks. They traveled slowly, stopping when they wanted, sleeping under the stars. Clara told Samuel everything that had happened while he was gone, finding Ruth Ann, the deal with Cole, Lily staying with Maggie. Samuel listened to it all with an expression of amazement. You did all that for me. I did it for us. Clara reached over and took his hand. For our family. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. Our family. I like the sound of that. On the 20th day, they crested the final ridge and saw Cold Spring spread out below them. Clara's heart swelled. Home. They rode straight to Maggie's boarding house. Clara barely had time to dismount before the door flew open and a small figure came running out. Uncle Sam, Clara. Lily threw herself at Samuel so hard she nearly knocked him off his horse. He caught her and lifted her up, spinning her around while she shrieked with joy. You came back. You came back. I promised, didn't I? Samuel's voice was thick with tears. I always keep my promises. Lily turned to Clara, arms outstretched. You brought him back. You promised, and you did it. Clara gathered them both into her arms. I told you, sweetheart, we're a family now, and families don't give up on each other. Maggie appeared in the doorway, wiping her eyes with her apron. About time you got back. I was starting to think I'd have to raise this child myself. Clara laughed and hugged her tight. Thank you. For everything. Don't mention it. But Maggie was smiling. Now get going, all of you. You've got a ranch to run. They rode home together, Clara, Samuel, and Lily, as the sun began to set behind the mountains. The ranch looked exactly as Clara had left it, maybe a little more overgrown, maybe a little worse for wear. But it was theirs. Samuel dismounted and stood looking at the house, the barn, the fences he'd helped repair. Lily tugged at his hand. "Come on, Uncle Sam. I want to show you Hope. She got so big while you were gone." Samuel let her lead him toward the stable, laughing at her excitement. Clara watched them go, her heart so full it hurt. This was what she'd been fighting for. This moment. This family. And it was finally hers. The first week back felt like a dream Clara was afraid to wake from. She kept catching herself staring at Samuel across the breakfast table, watching him chop wood in the yard, listening to him read stories to Lily by the fire. Every time he looked up and smiled at her, she felt that same jolt of disbelief. He was here. He was really here. And he wasn't going anywhere. But there was still one piece of unfinished business. Judge Harlan Whitmore hadn't given up. While Clara was in Missouri, he'd filed his petition with the court. The stewardship hearing was scheduled for the following week. "We should talk about it," Samuel said one evening after Lily had gone to bed. Clara was sitting by the fire, mending a tear in one of Lily's dresses. Her hands stilled. "I know. The partnership contract might not be enough. Wallace warned us Harlan would challenge it." "I know that too." Samuel moved to sit beside her. "Clara, look at me." She set down the mending and met his eyes. "There's another way?" he said quietly. "A way that would end this for good." Clara's heart started beating faster. "Samuel, let me finish." He took her hands in his. "I know this isn't how it's supposed to happen. I know there should be flowers and a sunset, and me down on one knee somewhere romantic. But I've learned something these past few months. Life doesn't wait for perfect moments. You have to make them yourself." Clara couldn't breathe. Samuel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A ring. Simple silver with a tiny blue stone set in the center. "This was my mother's," he said. "She gave it to me before she died. Told me to give it to someone worthy of it." His voice cracked. "I've never met anyone more worthy than you." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Clara Josephine Whitmore, you saved my life. You saved Lily's life. You gave us a home when we had nothing. You fought for me when everyone else had given up." He looked into her eyes. "I love you. I've loved you since the moment you pointed that rifle at my chest and told me not to die on your floor." She laughed through her tears. "That's when you fell in love with me. That's when I knew you were different. Someone fierce enough to protect what's hers, but soft enough to take in two strangers in a storm." He squeezed her hands. "I don't want to be your business partner, Clara. I want to be your husband. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to raise Lily together, build this ranch together, grow old together." Clara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. "I know you're scared," Samuel continued. "I know you've been hurt before. I know trust doesn't come easy, but I'm asking you to trust me anyway, to take a chance on us, on this family we've built." He held up the ring. "Clara Whitmore, will you marry me?" For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then Clara reached out and took the ring from his hand. "Yes." Samuel's whole face transformed. "Yes. Yes, you stubborn, wonderful man. Yes, I'll marry you." He pulled her into his arms and kissed her deep and slow and full of promise. Clara kissed him back with everything she had, 3 years of loneliness and grief and fear melting away in the warmth of his embrace. When they finally broke apart, they were both crying. "I thought you'd say no," Samuel admitted. "I almost did. The scared part of me wanted to." Clara touched his face. "But the rest of me, the part that remembers what it's like to really live that part, couldn't wait to say yes." Samuel pressed his forehead against hers. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you glad you did. You better. A small voice came from the hallway. "Are you getting married?" They turned. Lily stood in the doorway, her doll clutched against her chest, her eyes wide with hope. Clara held out her arm. "Come here, sweetheart." Lily ran to them, climbing onto the settee between them. Are you really getting married?" "We are." Samuel put his arm around her. "How do you feel about that?" Lily's face split into the biggest smile Clara had ever seen. "I feel happy. I feel so happy." She threw her arms around Clara's neck. "Does this mean you're going to be my mama now?" Clara's heart stopped. She looked at Samuel. He nodded, his eyes wet. "If you want me to be," Clara whispered. Lily pulled back and looked at her with complete seriousness. "I want you to be. I've wanted you to be since the first day. When you braided my hair and showed me hope and told me it was okay to cry." Clara gathered her close. "Then yes, I'll be your mama, for as long as you want me. Forever. Forever." The three of them sat there, wrapped around each other, as the fire burned low and the night grew quiet. A family. A real family. Clara had almost forgotten what that felt like. The wedding was set for the following Sunday. Maggie insisted on handling the preparations. "You've got enough to worry about with that hearing coming up. Let me do this for you." Clara tried to argue, but Maggie wouldn't hear it. "I've buried 2 husbands and 2 sons. Let me celebrate something for once." So Clara let her. And somehow in the space of 5 days, Maggie transformed the little church in Cold Spring into something magical. "Nothing fancy," Clara had said. "Just simple, honest." Maggie delivered. The day of the wedding dawned clear and cold. Clara woke early, her stomach full of butterflies. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with everything that could go wrong. The hearing Harlan, the future stretching out uncertain and unknowable. But when she walked into the church and saw Samuel standing at the altar, all of that fell away. He was wearing a dark suit that Maggie had somehow procured from somewhere. His hair was combed, his face shaved clean, and he was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Clara walked down the aisle alone. She'd thought about asking someone to give her away, but in the end, she decided against it. She'd been on her own for 3 years. She'd earned the right to walk herself into her new life. Lily walked ahead of her, scattering dried flowers from a basket. She was wearing a new dress, blue to match her eyes, and her hair was braided with ribbons. She looked like a little angel. The ceremony was short and simple. The preacher said the words. Clara and Samuel said their vows. And when he slipped her mother's ring onto her finger, Clara felt something click into place, like a key turning in a lock, like a door finally opening. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher said. "You may kiss the bride." Samuel pulled her close and kissed her softly, reverently. The small crowd cheered. Maggie, Judge Wallace, Sheriff Thorne, a few neighbors who'd come despite the whispers. When they broke apart, Lily was jumping up and down. "They're married. They're really married." Samuel scooped her up and held her between them. "We're a family now," he said. "Official." "Does that mean I can call you Mama and Papa?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. "You can call us whatever you want, sweetheart." Lily threw her arms around both their necks. "Mama, Papa, I love you." Clara held on tight. "We love you too, baby girl. We love you too." The reception was small but warm. Maggie had prepared enough food to feed an army, and the little church hall was filled with laughter and music and the smell of fresh bread. Clara stood by the window watching Samuel dance with Lily. He was spinning her around, making her giggle, her small feet barely touching the ground. "You look happy." Clara turned. Maggie stood beside her holding 2 cups of cider. "I am happy." Clara took the cup. "I'd forgotten what that felt like." "Happiness has a way of sneaking up on you when you're not looking." Maggie smiled. "That man loves you something fierce." "I know." "And that little girl, she's going to be just fine. You've given her something precious." Clara looked at Lily, still laughing in Samuel's arms. She's given me something too. They both have. That's how family works. You give and you get, and somehow there's always more than you started with. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Maggie, for everything. Oh, hush. But Maggie was blinking hard too. Now go dance with your husband before I start crying all over this nice dress. Clara laughed and walked across the room. Samuel saw her coming and set Lily down. May I have this dance, Mrs. Brennan? Clara's heart swelled. You may. He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They swayed together to the fiddle music, not quite dancing, just holding each other. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up, Samuel murmured against her hair. Me too. This is real, right? This is actually happening. Clara pulled back and looked into his eyes. This is real. You're stuck with me now. There's no place I'd rather be stuck. He kissed her again, soft and slow. Around them, the music played on. The hearing was 3 days later. Clara walked into the courthouse with Samuel on one side and Lily on the other. She was wearing her best dress, the one she'd married Samuel in, and her head was held high. Judge Wallace was already seated at the bench. Harlan Whitmore sat at the opposite table, his lawyer beside him. When he saw Clara, his face twisted with something between anger and disgust. I see you've gone through with this arrangement, he said. Clara didn't flinch. I married the man I love. It's hardly an arrangement. You married a fugitive, a man accused of murder, a man who was acquitted by a jury in a court of law. Clara sat down at her table. The same law you claim to respect so much. Harlan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Judge Wallace called the hearing to order. We're here to address the petition filed by Judge Harlan Whitmore regarding the stewardship of the Monroe Ranch property. He looked at Harlan. You claim that Mrs. Whitmore, now Mrs. Brennan, has failed to meet the requirements of the stewardship clause in her deed. Is that correct? Harlan's lawyer stood. That is correct, Your Honor. The clause clearly states that an unmarried woman cannot hold property of this size without male oversight. Mrs. Whitmore has been unmarried for nearly 4 years. She's married now, Judge Wallace pointed out. The marriage took place after the petition was filed. We contend that it's a marriage of convenience designed solely to circumvent the law. Clara stood. Your Honor, may I speak? Wallace nodded. This marriage is not a convenience. It's a commitment. Samuel Brennan came into my life when I was alone and struggling. He worked my land, helped me rebuild, and became part of my family. She looked at Harlan. He didn't marry me for my property. He married me because he loves me. And I married him because I love him. Harlan's lawyer smirked. Very touching, but the law doesn't care about love. Then let's talk about the law. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a sheaf of papers. I have documents here showing that the Monroe Ranch has been fully operational for the past 3 years. Livestock counts, crop yields, property improvements, all maintained by me alone, without any male oversight. She laid the papers on the judge's bench. I also have a letter from the original surveyor who drew up my deed. He states that the stewardship clause was included at the request of my husband's grandfather, not as a legal requirement, but as a suggestion. She looked at Harlan. A suggestion that was never meant to be enforced. Harlan's face went red. That's irrelevant. The clause is in the deed. It's legally binding. Is it? Clara pulled out another paper. This is a copy of a similar clause from a deed in Missouri. It was challenged in court last year and found to be unconstitutional. The judge ruled that such clauses violate a woman's right to own property. Judge Wallace took the paper and read it carefully. His eyebrows rose. This is interesting. It's a precedent, Your Honor, and it applies here. Harlan stood his chair, scraping loudly. This is outrageous. You can't just... Sit down, Judge Whitmore. Wallace's voice was sharp. You're not on the bench today. I am. Harlan sat, but his face was purple with rage. Wallace was quiet for a long moment, reading through the papers. Finally, he looked up. "Mrs. Brennan, you make a compelling case. However, I'm not in a position to rule on constitutional matters. That would need to go to a higher court." Clara's heart sank. "But," Wallace continued, "I can rule on the immediate petition, and based on the evidence presented, including Mrs. Brennan's marriage, her documented stewardship of the property, and the questionable origins of the clause itself, I find no grounds to transfer the property." Clara couldn't breathe. "The petition is denied. The Monroe Ranch remains the legal property of Clara Whitmore Brennan." For a moment, Clara just stood there, unable to process what she'd heard. Then Samuel's hand found hers squeezing tight, and Lily was tugging at her dress asking if they'd won, and Maggie was cheering from the gallery. They'd won. Clara looked at Harlan. He was staring at her with an expression of pure hatred. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Clara met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, it is. I'm not Daniel. I'm not going to bend to you or break for you. This land is mine. It's been mine for 3 years, and it's going to stay mine for the rest of my life." She leaned closer. "You can fight me all you want, Harlan, but I will never stop fighting back. So you can either accept that and leave me alone, or you can spend the rest of your days losing to a woman you thought you could control." Harlan's mouth opened, closed. For once in his life, he had nothing to say. Clara turned and walked out of the courthouse, her husband and daughter beside her. She didn't look back. Spring came slowly that year, but when it arrived with a vengeance. The snow melted almost overnight, revealing patches of green that spread across the ranch like hope. Clara stood on the porch watching Samuel work in the garden, while Lily ran circles around him pretending to be a horse. 3 months had passed since the hearing. 3 months of peace. Harlan had disappeared from public life shortly after losing the case. Rumors said he'd gone east to live with relatives. Other rumors said he'd had a breakdown. Clara didn't know which was true, and she didn't particularly care. He was gone. That was what mattered. The ranch was thriving. Samuel had turned out to be even better at farming than Clara had hoped. He had a way with the animals, a patience with the soil, a knack for fixing things that seemed unfixable. And he'd started practicing medicine again. It had happened gradually. First, he'd helped Maggie's cook when she burned her hand. Then, he'd treated a neighbor's son who'd fallen from a horse. Word spread, and before long, people were coming to the ranch asking for Dr. Brennan. "You don't have to do this," Clara had told him. "Not if it brings back bad memories." Samuel had smiled. "The memories aren't all bad, and I became a doctor to help people. I forgot that for a while, but you helped me remember." Now he split his time between the ranch and a small office in town. Cold Spring finally had a real doctor. Clara heard footsteps behind her and turned. Lily was running up the porch steps, her face flushed with excitement. "Mama! Mama Hope had a baby!" Clara's eyes went wide. "What? A baby horse? In the stable, Papa says it's a girl." Clara grabbed Lily's hand and hurried toward the stable. Sure enough, Hope was standing in her stall, looking exhausted but proud. And beside her on shaky new legs was the tiniest foal Clara had ever seen. Samuel stood nearby, grinning. "She just delivered about 10 minutes ago. Perfect birth. No complications." Clara pressed her hand to her mouth. "She's beautiful." "She needs a name," Lily said, tugging on Clara's arm. "Can I name her, please?" Clara looked at Samuel. He nodded. "Of course you can, sweetheart. What do you want to call her?" Lily studied the foal with serious concentration. The baby horse blinked at her with big, curious eyes. "Grace," Lily said finally. "Because Mama says grace is when good things happen that you don't deserve." Clara's throat tightened. She knelt down beside Lily. "That's a beautiful name." "Really?" "Really." Clara hugged her tight. "It's perfect." Samuel put his arm around both of them. They stood there together watching Grace take her first wobbly steps. Hope and Grace. Clara thought about that, about how far they'd all come. A year ago, she'd been alone. broken, convinced she'd spend the rest of her life fighting just to survive. Now she had a husband who loved her, a daughter who'd healed her heart, a home that was finally full of the sounds she'd missed for so long, laughter and footsteps, and the quiet comfort of people who belonged to each other. "Penny for your thoughts," Samuel murmured. Clara leaned into him, just thinking about how much can change in a year. Good change. The best change. She looked up at him. "I was so scared when you showed up on my doorstep. Scared of letting someone in. Scared of losing everything again. And now I'm not scared anymore." She touched his face. "You taught me that love isn't about avoiding loss. It's about finding something worth the risk." Samuel kissed her forehead. "You taught me that too." Lily squeezed between them, demanding attention. "Can we show Hope the baby I think she wants to see?" Clara laughed. "Sweetheart, Hope is the mama. She knows the baby is there." "But she should know we're happy for her." Samuel scooped Lily up onto his shoulders. "You're absolutely right. Let's go congratulate her properly." They walked into the stable together, Lily chattering excitedly about all the things she was going to teach Grace when she got bigger. Samuel listened patiently, adding suggestions making Lily giggle. Clara hung back for the moment watching them. Her family. The word still felt strange in her mouth. Foreign. Like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. But every day it got easier. Every day she believed it a little more. That night, after Lily was asleep, Clara sat with Samuel on the porch. The stars were out bright and countless, and the air smelled like spring. "Do you ever think about the future?" Clara asked. Samuel considered the question. "I try not to think too far ahead. The past taught me that plans can fall apart in an instant. But if you could plan, if you could dream, what would you want?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached over and took her hand. "More mornings like this one. More evenings like this. Lily growing up healthy and happy. Maybe," he paused, "maybe another child someday. If that's something you want." Clara's heart skipped. "Another child? Only if you want. I know you've been through a lot. I wouldn't ask you to. I want." The words came out before she could stop them. "I want that. I want all of it." Samuel's face lit up. Yeah. Clara squeezed his hand. "I stopped dreaming about the future after Daniel died. It hurt too much. But you've made me want to dream again." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "Then let's dream together. Whatever comes, we'll face it, side by side." Clara rested her head on his shoulder. "Promise? Cross my heart." She smiled against his chest. "I love you, Samuel Brennan." "I love you too, Clara Brennan." They sat there until the stars began to fade, holding each other, watching the sky lighten at the edges. A new day was coming, a new season, a new chapter. And for the first time in years, Clara couldn't wait to see what it would bring. Months passed. Summer turned to fall, fall to winter, and then spring returned again, gentler this time, like it knew they'd earned some peace. On a warm April morning, Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Lily's laughter from the kitchen. She lay in bed for a moment listening, letting the sounds wash over her. 1 year. It had been 1 year since Samuel and Lily had stumbled into her life. She got up dressed and walked to the kitchen. Samuel was at the stove making pancakes. Lily sat at the table drawing pictures, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Morning, sleepyhead?" Samuel said, kissing her cheek. "Morning." Clara sat down beside Lily. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Lily held up her paper. It was a picture of the ranch, the house, the stable, the garden. And in front of it 4 stick figures. 2 tall, 2 small. Clara's breath caught. 4? Lily grinned. "That's you and Papa and me and the baby." Clara looked at Samuel. His eyes were shining. "I told her this morning," he said softly. I hope that's okay." Clara laughed, tears springing to her eyes. They'd found out just last week. She was 3 months along, still early, but healthy, strong. "It's more than okay." She pulled Lily into a hug. "What do you think about being a big sister?" "I think it's the best thing ever." Lily bounced in her seat. "I'm going to teach the baby everything. How to ride horses and feed chickens and braid hair and—" "One thing at a time, sweetheart," Samuel said, setting down a plate of pancakes. "The baby won't be here for a while yet." "But I can start planning now, right?" Clara laughed. "You absolutely can." They ate breakfast together the way they did every morning. Lily talked about her plans for the baby. Samuel told stories about his childhood. Clara sat back and listened, her hand resting on her stomach, feeling the tiny flutter of new life. After breakfast, they walked out to the pasture together. Hope and Grace were grazing side by side, their coats gleaming in the morning sun. Lily ran ahead, calling to them. Samuel took Clara's hand. "You okay?" "More than okay." She looked up at him. "I'm happy. Really, truly happy." "I know the feeling." They watched Lily climb the fence and reach out to pet Grace's nose. The young horse nuzzled her palm, gentle as a lamb. "She's going to be a wonderful big sister," Clara said. "She's already wonderful. She just needed the chance to show it." Clara leaned against him. "We all did." Samuel wrapped his arm around her. "A year ago, I was dying in a snowstorm with no hope and no future. Now I have a wife, a daughter, a home, and a baby on the way." His voice cracked. "I still don't understand how I got so lucky." "It wasn't luck." Clara looked up at him. "It was love. Love and stubbornness, and refusing to give up." "Sounds like someone I know." She smiled. "We're quite a pair. The best pair." He kissed her soft and sweet. In the distance, Lily was singing to the horses, making up words as she went along. Clara closed her eyes and let the moment wash over her. This was it. This was everything she'd ever wanted and everything she'd been afraid to hope for. A home, a family, a future. Not perfect. Nothing was perfect, but real. Solid. Hers. She'd spent 3 years learning how to survive alone. And then Samuel and Lily had shown up, half frozen and desperate, and taught her something more important. They'd taught her how to live again. "What are you thinking?" Samuel asked. Clara opened her eyes and looked at the ranch spread out before her. The house she'd fought for. The land she'd bled for. The family she'd never expected to find. "I'm thinking that home isn't a place you buy," she said. "It's the place you build, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of love at a time." Samuel pulled her closer. "And you've built something beautiful. We built it, together." Lily came running back, grabbing both their hands. "Can we have a picnic? Please, by the river. It's so pretty today." Clara looked at Samuel. He shrugged, smiling. "Why not? We've got nowhere else to be." They gathered blankets and food and walked down to the riverbank together. The water sparkled in the sunlight, clear and cold. Lily immediately kicked off her shoes and waded in, shrieking at the temperature. Clara and Samuel sat on the blanket watching her splash and play. "This is good," Samuel said quietly. "It is. I mean really good, like the kind of good I didn't think existed anymore." Clara reached over and took his hand. "It exists. It just takes work to find it, and courage to hold on to it. You've got plenty of both. So do you." They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the river and Lily's laughter filling the air. After a while, Lily came running back, dripping wet and grinning. "The water's cold." "You don't say." Clara wrapped her in a blanket. "Come here before you freeze." Lily snuggled between them, shivering happily. "This is the best day ever." "Is it?" "Every day is the best day ever now." Lily looked up at Clara with complete sincerity. Because I have you and Papa and Hope and Grace, and soon I'll have a baby brother or sister, and everything is perfect." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Samuel. He was crying too. "You're right, sweetheart," Clara whispered. "Everything is perfect." They stayed by the river until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Then they walked home together, Lily between them, holding both their hands. The house was warm when they got back, the fire still glowing from that morning. Samuel made dinner while Clara helped Lily get cleaned up. They ate together, laughed together, and then curled up by the fire for stories. By the time Lily fell asleep, her head in Clara's lap, the house was quiet. Peaceful. Samuel carried Lily to bed, tucking her in with the gentleness he showed in everything he did. Clara watched from the doorway, her heart so full it hurt. When he came back, he pulled her into his arms. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance. For believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. For being stubborn enough to fight for us even when I'd given up." Clara touched his face. "You would have done the same for me." "In a heartbeat." She kissed him. "Then let's call it even." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other, letting the silence say what words couldn't. Finally, Clara pulled back. "Come on, it's late. We should get some sleep." Samuel nodded, but before he let her go, he said one more thing. "I used to think home was a place you lost, something that could be taken away." He looked around the room, the fire, the quilts, the photographs on the mantel. "But you taught me different. Home isn't something you lose. It's something you build, and once you build it right, nothing can take it away." Clara smiled. "That's the truest thing you've ever said. I learned it from you." They walked to their room together, hand in hand. Outside, the stars burned bright over the mountains. The horses slept in the stable. The wind whispered through the grass. And in a small house on a ranch in Wyoming, a family rested. Not because the world was safe or the future was certain. Not because they'd never face hardship again, but because they'd found each other. Because they'd chosen each other. Because they'd built something together that was stronger than fear, deeper than loss, and more enduring than any storm. Clara Whitmore. Brennan had spent 3 years learning to survive alone. Now finally she understood something more important. Survival wasn't the goal. Living was. And she planned to live every single day of the life she'd fought so hard to build, with her husband beside her daughter in her arms, and a new life growing in her belly. Clara looked toward the future with something she hadn't felt in years. Not hope. That was too small a word. Certainty. The certainty that no matter what came next, storms or sunshine, hardship or joy, she would never face it alone again. Because home wasn't a place you bought or inherited or defended. Home was the people who stayed. And these people, her people, were staying forever.